The prototype was introduced in 1990, and 2 years later the first car rolled off the production lines.
Visually, the Griffith brought TVR kicking and screaming into the 90s. Out went the sharp, angular lines of the 80s and in came the smoothness of the 90s. But although the car looked more pleasing to the eye, underneath it was still as aggressive and hungry as ever.
Performance? Well, that was seat wetting. At launch it came with a 4-litre 240 brake engine, then a 4.3-litre 280 brake horsepower engine. The 4.3 would go from 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds. It was faster than a Ferrari Testarossa. Not bad for something built by the sea.
In total, the Griffith was a huge success for TVR, the last evolution coming in 1993 with the launch of the 340 brake Griffith 500. But despite its relatively short life, the car had brought TVR back into the limelight and set the shape of the company's future.
Now, I can't think of any car that offers as many thrills per pound as the TVR, and because of the Griffith's success there are lots of them around. But like any specialist sports car, there are things you need to look out for. So here's Ian again with our lowdown on buying a used Griffith.
The Griffith's success is as much down to its performance as well as its affordability. If you are considering becoming a member of the Specialist Sports Car Club for the first time, what are the things you should be looking out for on a second-hand Griffith?
If you're thinking of purchasing a Griffith second-hand, there's a number of things you've got to watch out for. The first is the interior. Make sure the car's not a leaker, and by that, go into the car, feel for damp patches, and if there's a musty smell, then it's going to be a poor purchase. The car will have leaked and it'll have water in it. The second thing to look out for is start the car up and look at the exhaust smoke. It should be clean with no black smoke and no oil in it. That's a good sign that the engine's in good condition. Oil pressure should be about 30 to 40 psi and when the engine's revving, and about 10 psi at tick over. Another tip on the engine is leave the engine running. Make sure both cooling fans come on. If they don't, then there's a problem with the cooling system.
The Griffith is without doubt one of the most popular TVRs, so there are plenty of models around. However, we would recommend the later models as they were fitted with new engines and gearboxes. In terms of prices, well, you can expect to pay just under £13,000 for a 1994 model or £15,500 for a 1997 Griffith.
I paid £15,000. Brand new, they're about £38,000. It's not that expensive to run at all. It's probably cost me about £500 this year, and that was for a 60,000 mile service at the factory.
For all the success of the Griffith, TVR still wanted a car that was less aggressive and more accessible to drivers. So in 1993 they unveiled a car that was to form the basis of their entire range to date, the beautiful Chimera.
Although to look at, the Chimera was much more rounded and stylish than the Griffith, it still had TVR's aggressive stance. As well it should, really, because, after all, despite being a completely new body, the Chimera relied upon both the chassis and the engines from the Griffith. The only real difference was that the Chimera had a softer spring setup.
One of the beautiful features of the Chimera is its devotion to aerodynamics. Gone are any protruding door handles or fuel filler caps. In fact, it once featured on the Krypton factor in an aptitude test. Contestants had to find everything. But by hiding everything, TVR have created a pure, organic, sleek sports car. Now with an entry price of just over £35,000 to join the TVR experience, you have to say, well, is it worth it? The Chimera is only £600 more. That's all for part one, but join us in part two when I'll be getting my hands on the new TVR that have got BMW and Porsche quaking in the boots, the Chimera, and we'll be taking a look into TVR's future with the all-new T350. See you in a couple of minutes. Hello and welcome back to part two of Dream Deals. Now this week we're in glorious, boiling hot Blackpool, as you can see, taking a look at one of Britain's best loved car manufacturers, TVR. Now later in the show I'm going to be test driving the new Chimera, and we'll be taking a look at the car that caused such a stir at last year's British Motor Show, the T350. But first, let's continue our walk down TVR memory lane. Built at the beginning of the 21st century, the Tuscan, the Buck Rogers of cars, was, in the words of TVR, the most important car they've ever made. In the past, TVR could be accused of making pure drivers' cars, blistering performance and handling, but lacking the finesse of other marques. Well, with the Tuscan, TVR, that's all going to change. They reckon it's a car for all occasions.
At first glance, you might think that TVR had got their new philosophy all wrong, but trust me, I'm a TV presenter. Look again. It might well be the boldest and brashest thing you've ever seen, with bullet hole front lights, massive air intakes and 18-inch spider leg alloys, but it is in fact, if you can say this, a practical sports car.
As strange as that might sound, it's true. Under that bonnet, they've deployed a straight 6 instead of a V8, the classic TVR engine, thus creating enough space in the front footwells for a tower clown. Improving the pedal layout, essential in any true sports car, shoving the catalytic converters forward, thus improving emissions. Prices for a new TVR Tuscan start at just under £40,000, and although reasonable for the amount of car you're getting, it's still beyond the range of mere mortals like you and me. So before you start crying, here's Ian Royal with a guide on how you too can be an owner of a TVR Tuscan.
There's no doubt that the Tuscan is a highly desirable car. Just one look tells you that. But what's your favourite aspect of the car?
Favourite aspect of the car has got to be the performance, and also really the performance you get for the price of the car. The kind of performance you can expect is comparable to a Ferrari, and really a fraction of the cost to purchase the car and to keep it running on the road. I think one of the particular aspects I like about the car is the interior, that it's very, very unusual in its appearance, but everything's there control-wise and as ergonomic really as any other car you can find on the road.
Because the Tuscan has only been out for a few years, prices aren't that cheap. A model year 2000 Tuscan S will set you back just under £40,000, while a W-regged convertible would cost about £26,000. The reason for such high prices is, of course, high demand. This is great news if you're selling, but not if you're buying. If you want to find a cheap second-hand model, you will have to wait a while.
TVR, being a TVR, it is a specialist car, and it's obviously a very high performance car, and I think it's very important to keep a full TVR service history on it, both for your own peace of mind and for when reselling the vehicle. The service intervals on this particular model are every 6,000 miles, and you can expect to pay in the region of £550–600 for a full comprehensive service.
Finally, as the Tuscan offers amazing performance, there is the chance that second-hand models might have been used for track days. So when you're buying, make sure you check for accident damage, worn tyres, fading brakes and chipped paintwork. Because if you don't, the smile you wear when you first buy will soon be wiped off.
Now, motoring journalists like me are often criticised and even ridiculed for drawing comparisons between cars and women. You know the kind of thing, slip the baby into third, let's see what it can do, and I gave it a right seeing to. Thoroughly naff, quite predictable and sexist. So today, in the interest of political correctness, originality and equality, I'm going to be drawing comparisons between cars and men. Wish me luck. See, if men were cars, this is pretty much how it would be. Ferraris, sophisticated, highly strung, prone to the odd tantrum. Men. Porsches, athletic, powerful. Men, but lacking in a sense of humour. And TVRs, common, grotesque, ropey around the edges, but without doubt the most fun to be with. Men. And if this TVR Chimera was a man, it'd have a great big fat ass.